Welcome to the definitive guide to MTA, or multi-touch attribution. We're going to break this down today because it's a super hot topic. If you're using things like Northbeam or Hyros or Wicked Reports, why they were designed, what promise they're supposed to deliver on, and where do they actually present far more of a liability than anything close to something you can use to be successful. Let's break all of that down. Plus, why isn't multi-touch attribution legitimate in the first place? And, well, what should you do instead? We're going to break all that down. Plus, there are a few multi-touch attribution tools that I actually enjoy. So let's completely break everything I'm going to say and give an explanation into why those are helpful as well. That being said, I really appreciate your time. I know that you could be literally anywhere on the internet right now, and you've chosen to spend your time here with me. If you enjoy these types of videos, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. The algorithms love that. Comment below with any questions, and make sure to read down in the description of this video for details on all sorts of things around multi-touch attribution that can really help you get more clarity. If you enjoy that stuff and you want more information, hey, go ahead, sign up for the newsletter at newsletter.facebookdisruptor.com, or go on over to disruptorschool.com and check out all of the wonderful programs we have there, from the Facebook Ads MBA program to Sarah Levenger's new course. There's a lot of really great stuff. I am here to ultimately help you see more success and less stress. And let's dive in today primarily with multi-touch attribution into the difference between what makes an ad agency report look good and what helps a brand really grow. Because fun fact, they're almost mutually exclusive. So what is MTA, multi-touch attribution, and who does it help? Well, first off, multi-touch attribution is the idea of saying, well, you can't just give credit to the last thing that touched somebody according to that last thing. Like, you might get credit for a sale from somebody that opens an email, but they might have also searched something on Google yesterday and seen an ad on Facebook in the last 5 days and maybe been exposed to something on TikTok. You could theoretically get attribution from any one of those places or all of them. Now, your report might say you made 4 sales, but your store says you only made 1. So the idea of multi-touch attribution is, how do we account for all of this stuff so that ultimately we can see who gets credit? Multi-touch attribution platforms like Northbeam and Hyros and Wicked Reports are basically built around the idea of who gets credit for what. Now, this is tremendously helpful if you're an ad agency looking to understand how much credit you get for the revenue that your client receives, and more importantly, what inside of your ecosystem gets the credit for that work. What ad set, what campaign, etc. is the reason for revenue today. Ultimately, multi-touch attribution is built around the idea of retroactively assigning credit to specific efforts so that ultimately you could understand theoretically what you're supposed to do in the future. Now, we'll break down in their next segment of why isn't multi-touch attribution legitimate at all. We'll break down into what's fundamentally wrong with that entire statement. I would akin it to trying to say, what is the weight of a butterfly's dream? You're trying to tangibly measure a fictitious idea. Now, that being said, a multi-touch attribution tool ultimately is designed to try to solve this problem of, well, who gets credit so that we can begin to make decisions? But a retroactive report card is only effective in the individual use case for each individual customer. Now, here's the problem. If you get 10 sales, it is extraordinarily unlikely that any of those 10 people behaved in the same way. Now, what if you get 1,000 sales? It's also extremely unlikely that any of those 1,000 people saw the same marketing messaging at the same time, from the same place, in the same order, to take the same action. And the reason for this is manifold, but ultimately it comes down to we all exist in a dynamic environment. So it's very difficult to say, well, first touch, here we introduced the idea, and then they saw some more ads and they clicked, and then they searched on something and they signed up for an email address, and ultimately email got the sale. Now, that's a great pitch for an email ad agency that says, well, we get the credit for the sales, because to be fair, they sent an email, somebody clicked on that email and they bought. Yes. But that doesn't mean that the way you're going to 10x your business is by sending 10x more emails. Now, that makes sense. But now that means the insight from the multi-touch attribution tool of your choice doesn't really work. Let's take another example that is tremendously common, especially with Facebook marketers. Well, what ad made the sale? We have a killer ad that's getting a great ROAS, etc. Do you really? My point is, you might have ads that get a lot of spend while an ad account looks good. Sure. And that ad might exist in several ad sets. Great. Well, you might say, well, I've got a lookalike and I've got an interest group and I've got something else. And the argument is, well, my interest groups widely outperform broad. Why do you say that? Well, because you're getting the report on attribution that says, well, my sales that come from the interest group are happening at a higher ROAS than the ones that are coming in off of broad. And my retargeting is better than broad. How often do we hear that's better than broad? Sure. The attribution of that sale to the last touch point might very well be the one-day view from that broad or that interest group or that retargeting audience. You might say, well, I don't do one-day view. I only do one-day click and that's it. Okay. So it's the last thing they clicked on. Let me ask you this. If you're selling shoes, did you invent the shoe? Are you able to say that nobody has ever gone to, that there's one, no other brand in the world selling what you sell? Two, the people that have bought from you have never seen the idea or ever made a purchase in their life or been exposed to anybody else that has ever made a purchase in their life, anything close to what you sell. And three, that you're able to give 100% credit to whatever the last thing was that's put them across the line. Now, we know that that is completely ludicrous. So the idea of multi-touch attribution is to say, well, this thing touched somebody first, and then we warmed them up here, and then we got the sale. Great. The problem is, nobody behaves the same way. So that multi-touch attribution is at best an average aggregate of whatever model makes the person that bought that multi-touch attribution tool happy. And doesn't actually solve for the vast majority of use cases, but is instead effectively averaging averages to find something that kind of makes sense. The problem is that's not actionable in any way, but it does help to say, well, our Facebook agency did X, our email agency did Y, our search department did X, Y, and Z. Our influencers did X, Y, and Z, and that's great information. The problem is the use of a multi-touch attribution tool to tell you how much credit any platform gets for any specific conversion is not a solution that is scalable to everybody. And in a very real case, when I was setting up, working with Facebook back in the day with the engineering team to set up advanced matching, which is what broad targeting is kind of built on, back in 2017 and 2018, which made audiences obsolete. By the way, if you're still using audiences, hopefully this helps. We did a study. I was running New Balance at the time. That was one of my big clients. At cold prospecting, broad, 20 to 30 cents of every dollar might have been the first time somebody saw a New Balance ad on Facebook within the 6 months or year time period that we were tracking them. But they had abandoned cart on Reebok, Nike, Converse, Vans, or what was the other one? I can't remember the other brand. Anyway, point is, it had to be at 5 brands because they won't, cause for privacy concerns, they won't give you the exact information beyond the clarity of 5 brands. The point is, 20 to 30 cents of every dollar we spent on cold prospecting was actually a bottom of funnel retargeting ad. Now, the reason that that's really interesting is, well, our ad that got credit for the sale happened to be the ad that appealed to somebody that abandoned cart on another competitor's marketing funnel. If we're going to make the decision of this is the ad that works, we now have to control our competitor's marketing funnel in order for that to be a stable environment we can scale with. That makes no sense at all. And when you start to chase down interest groups and lookalikes and retargeting, you're ultimately saying the reason that audience or the reason that ad did well is because of the sales attributed to it. The problem is you can't control that attribution customer journey because ultimately nobody is net new. Every single ad is a retargeting ad. So if you can't control the customer journey and you're getting people coming in at very cold or piping hot, the reason that interest group worked is because that impression was lucky enough to hit somebody today. And maybe it's got some low-hanging fruit and you spend into it and it works great for a week or a month. And then ultimately you get rid of it. The point of this is ultimately your MTA is telling you how to retroactively give credit to things that aren't scalable decision-making. That will cripple you fundamentally forever. And it's designed to help ad agencies look good, not to help brands scale. That's a big deal.